Have you ever felt like you're being treated like, I don't know, a cog on an assembly line, even though you were hired specifically for your creative mind?
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge complaint right now.
Right. Like you were brought into your company to solve complex, ambiguous problems,
Hmm?
but then your everyday workflow is scrutinized as if you're just stamping out identical widgets on a factory floor.
It's such a common, frustrating dynamic.
It really is. So, welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to explore a massive, frankly baffling paradox in the modern workplace. We are diving into Dr. Jonathan H. Westover's research on From Surveillance to Trust.
Which is a really fascinating piece of work.
Yeah, and the core issue we are unpacking is that the very tools organizations use to ensure accountability, things like monitoring software, micromanagement, strict KPIs, they are actively destroying the performance they're meant to protect.
Right. And this dynamic was really forced into the spotlight when remote work exploded during COVID-19.
Oh, for sure.
Suddenly, companies hit this massive fork in the road. Some leaned heavily into trust, but, well, a huge number doubled down on surveillance tech.
Oh, yeah, literally tracking keystrokes, monitoring mouse movement, taking random screenshots of their employees' home computers.
What's fascinating here is the underlying assumption driving that surveillance. There's this deeply ingrained, almost reflex-level belief in traditional management that humans will inherently underperform unless they are constantly watched, measured, and corrected.
Wow, so basically assuming the worst of people from day one.
Exactly. But that is an outdated relic. I mean, it's a mindset built for the manufacturing era, designed for assembly lines where the goal was standardizing repetitive physical movements.
Which makes sense for a factory.
Right. But when you apply that to modern knowledge work, where the primary value drivers are creative problem solving, collaboration, and judgment, it fails miserably. We are trying to manage the mind with tools specifically designed to manage the muscle.
Okay, let's unpack exactly how that failure happens. We're going to look at the immense hidden costs of corporate surveillance, and then we're going to break down the exact evidence-based blueprints used by hyper-successful companies to build cultures of radical autonomy.
Because the data shows that up to 80% of employers post-pandemic are tracking their remote workers in some capacity.
80%, that is wild.
It's a massive number, but before we get to the blueprint for fixing it, we need to look at the mechanics of why this tracking completely backfires.
Right. Why doesn't it work?
Well, it backfires because of how human psychology naturally responds to rigid control systems. Dr. Westover's research categorizes control into three main areas today.
Okay, what are they?
First, you have behavioral control, which is the direct monitoring of time and physical activity. Then you have output control, which is the obsession with granular individual key performance indicators.
So like how many calls you made or tickets you closed in an hour.
Yes, exactly. And finally, normative control. That's essentially culture surveillance trying to force a homogeneous set of values.
Got it.
When you apply these to an intelligent adult, you trigger a profound psychological friction. Surveillance actively overwrites intrinsic motivation with extrinsic compliance.
Let me guess. If you start tracking every single keystroke a software developer makes, they just stop caring about the elegance or efficiency of the software they're building.
Oh, they absolutely do.
You just start playing a video game where the high score is keystrokes.
Yeah.
They just optimize for the metric.
Precisely. Organizational scholars call that measurement dysfunction. Cognitive energy is a finite resource, right?
Sure.
When you heavily monitor someone, they take that precious cognitive energy away from actual value creation and pour it into impression management. They just focus on looking busy.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. And the software developer study cited in the research is a perfect illustration of this.
Oh, yeah, I remember this part. What did they find?
Well, in a controlled study comparing matched teams, developers who were under close monitoring actually wrote 15 to 20% fewer lines of code.
Wait, fewer? I would have thought they'd write more garbage code just to hit the metric.
You'd think so, but no, it actually slowed them down. And the work they did produce had 25 to 30% more defects than the developers who were managed with autonomy.
So it's like asking an engineer to build a structurally sound bridge, but paying them strictly based on how many bricks they lay per hour.
That's a great way to put it.
You're going to get a very long, very fast bridge that collapses immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Because if elegant code requires a developer to stare at a whiteboard for an hour, thinking through a database architecture, the tracking software flags them as idle.
Exactly. Staring at the whiteboard is the actual work. But the monitoring creates an environment of fear where the appearance of work trumps the output of the work.
That is so counterproductive.
They are terrified to experiment because thoughtful trial and error requires making mistakes or looking unproductive for short bursts. So they don't take risks.
They just play it safe.
Right. They do the safest, most obvious thing to keep the status indicator green, even if it's the completely wrong solution for the actual problem.
That is wild.
Mhm.
The tracker literally manifests the bad performance it was installed to prevent.
It really does.
And if monitoring forces people to just look busy on daily tasks, what does that do to the macro goals? Things like long-term innovation.
Oh, it absolutely crushes innovation. We know that extrinsic rewards and punishments have incredibly weak or even negative relationships with creative output.
Negative relationships, like the more you reward or punish, the less creative people get.
Exactly. The research points to Capital One as a prime example here. They looked at patent production across different business units.
Okay, and what was the difference?
The teams that were given deep autonomy, meaning they had the freedom to select their own projects and define their own methodology for solving problems, they produced 40% more patent applications.
40% is a massive jump.
It is. And crucially, those applications had a 60% higher approval rate compared to teams that were heavily managed and forced to follow prescribed, step-by-step innovation processes.
Right, because you can't mandate a breakthrough. It's like the difference between painting a masterpiece because you're inspired versus painting by numbers with a manager literally looking over your shoulder.
That's exactly it. You just can't force inspiration with a checklist.
But the damage of this surveillance goes way beyond just a bank producing fewer patents.
Right.
Apply that same rigid compliance mindset to a high-stakes environment, and it actually becomes dangerous.
Oh, incredibly dangerous.
The research dives into healthcare, highlighting how rigid electronic health record systems are driving unprecedented physician burnout.
Yes, doctors are increasingly reporting that they feel reduced to data entry clerks.
Which is tragic.
It really is. The systems demand such massive amounts of compliance documentation tracking every single mouse click and keystroke that it separates the physician from the actual patient.
So they're staring at a screen instead of looking at the person they're treating.
Exactly. They lose the profound meaning of being a healer because they are being managed like typists.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. This profoundly changes how workers handle failure, which brings us to Amy Edmondson's hospital research in the source material.
Yes, her work on psychological safety is so crucial here.
And psychological safety is basically the shared belief that you can speak up or admit a mistake without being humiliated or punished.
Exactly. It's feeling safe to take interpersonal risks.
You would think a hospital unit with strict top-down controls, intense surveillance, and low psychological safety would have fewer errors, simply because everyone is terrified of messing up.
You would think so. But they don't make fewer errors.
Really?
No, they just get incredibly good at hiding them.
Wow, that is terrifying.
It is. The psychologically safe units, the ones operating on trust, reported an error detection rate nearly 10 times higher. Yes, 10 times. Not because those doctors and nurses were worse at their jobs, but because the systemic response to saying, "I almost gave the wrong dose," was, "Let's fix the protocol."
Instead of, you're fired.
Exactly. Because they felt safe enough to expose the flaws, the team could actually fix the systems before patients were harmed. Control literally bred danger by driving the errors underground.
It proves that trust isn't just a nice-to-have cultural perk. It is a hardcore operational imperative.
Absolutely. When a control system signals that any deviation will be punished, people bury their mistakes, and the organization completely loses its ability to learn.
So we clearly see the disaster of control.
Yeah.
But the logical hurdle for most leaders is if we strip away the tracking software and the micromanagement, how do we prevent total chaos?
And the answer in the research is a transition to radical transparency and employee voice.
Right, because taking away the surveillance doesn't mean you just say, do whatever you want, see you in a year.
No, not at all.
That's not autonomy, that's just abandonment.
Exactly. Transitioning to trust doesn't mean zero structure. It means fundamentally shifting your focus.
Shifting it how?
Well, instead of trying to control the process, the how, you become relentlessly transparent about the outcomes, the what and the why.
Okay.
Netflix is famous for this exact framework. They call it context, not control.
Context, not control. I like that.
Management provides massive amounts of context to the team. They openly share the shifting business conditions, the competitive threats, the raw strategic priorities.
And then they just let them figure it out.
Pretty much. They trust the employees to act on that information. They treat them like capable adults who can execute the how if they are given the right data.
Think about your own weekly team meetings for a second, right? Are you being handed a granular list of tasks to complete by Friday?
Which is how most meetings go.
Yeah. Or are you being handed the competitive data and the strategic goal and then asked to figure out the tasks yourself? The difference in engagement there is massive.
It's night and day.
But wait, how far does this transparency actually go? Because if you share everything, say financial data or compensation, doesn't that just invite massive internal drama?
It's a very common fear. I mean, almost every leader worries about that. But the evidence points the other way.
Really? How so?
The research highlights the tech company Buffer. They implemented completely open salaries.
Wait, so everyone in the company knows exactly what everyone else makes?
Everyone, down to the dollar. They openly distribute equity details, real-time revenue metrics, and their raw strategic planning documents.
That sounds like a recipe for chaos.
You'd think so, but the mechanism here is fascinating. Instead of creating chaos, it drastically reduced internal politics.
I guess that makes sense, because if I know you make $10,000 more than me, but I also have full visibility into the objective compensation metrics that justify it, like your tenure or a specific skill level, there's nothing to argue about.
Exactly.
The transparency literally kills the whisper network.
Precisely. Because there are no secrets, there is no need for back-channeling. It highly accelerated their decision-making.
That's incredible.
But if you want to see this taken to the absolute extreme, look at Morningstar, the world's largest tomato processor.
The tomato company?
Yes. This is a massive, complex industrial operation, and they literally have no formal managers. None.
Okay, I have to push back on this. A giant manufacturing plant with 0 managers.
0.
If there is no boss, who breaks a tie? If I have a conflict with a coworker on the factory floor about who is supposed to be doing what, how does anything get resolved without a supervisor stepping in?
They handle it through an incredibly robust mechanism of peer-to-peer accountability.
How does that work?
Employees at Morningstar use a document called a Colleague Letter of Understanding, or a CLOU.
A CLOU.
Okay. Basically, you negotiate your commitments directly with the peers who are affected by your work.
So no middleman.
Right. If I run the sorting machine and you drive the forklift, we agree in writing on exactly what we will deliver to each other.
So it's a horizontal contract rather than a vertical mandate from above.
Yes.
But what happens when the forklift driver doesn't deliver?
You don't complain to a boss. You sit down with that peer.
And if they still don't listen?
If you two can't resolve it, you bring in a mutually trusted third colleague to mediate.
Oh, interesting.
And if that fails, it goes to a panel of peers. It proves that accountability doesn't have to flow top-down.
It can flow horizontally.
Exactly, and it functions beautifully if the communication mechanisms are designed correctly.
Okay, that makes sense for a localized plant where everyone knows each other.
Yeah.
But if you are a massive global corporation listening to this right now, how do you scale that horizontal trust?
It's definitely a bigger challenge.
Like Morningstar's peer-to-peer system works for a localized workforce. But what happens when you have a global footprint? You can't just delete the management tier of a multinational company overnight without tearing down the building, right?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, actually you can. But it requires completely redesigning the operating model, essentially replacing bureaucracy with market dynamics.
Market dynamics inside a company.
Yes. Dr. Westover highlights Hair, the massive Chinese appliance maker. They did exactly what you just described.
They deleted their management.
They completely eliminated their middle management layers, thousands of them. They shattered this giant, sluggish corporation down into thousands of autonomous micro-enterprises.
So instead of one giant monolith, it's a swarm of tiny startups under one umbrella.
Exactly. Each microenterprise acts like a fully independent business. They have their own profit and loss responsibility.
Wow.
But the brilliant mechanism here is how they handle corporate services. The corporate headquarters just provides services like HR, marketing, or IT.
Okay.
But the microenterprises aren't forced to use them. If a microenterprise feels the internal marketing department is too slow or too expensive, they are totally free to hire an outside agency.
That is insane. So the internal departments essentially have to compete for the business of their own colleagues.
They do. It forces them to be competitive and efficient.
If your internal system is screaming, "We don't trust you," by forcing teams to use subpar internal tools, with 5 levels of budget approval. Hare just stripped all that out and replaced it with a pure market mechanism.
It's a massive organizational teardown.
It really is. But what about smaller, mid-level managers who want to build this muscle tomorrow? What are the micro habits of trust?
The source gives some fantastic, scalable examples of building that capability. If you want people to act autonomously, you have to actively train that muscle.
2 of my absolute favorites from the research stand out here. First, Atlassian, the software company.
Oh, their approach is great.
They run these ship-it days. They literally give employees 24 hours to work on absolutely anything they want, with anyone they want.
Total freedom.
And then they present the results to the company. It's a low-risk environment of pure, unadulterated autonomy that builds the innovation muscle.
It's a brilliant practice.
And second, the Ritz-Carlton $2,000 rule.
That is the gold standard of structural trust.
It really is.
Yeah.
The Ritz-Carlton explicitly authorizes any employee. I mean, it does not matter if you're a senior concierge or someone working in housekeeping.
Anyone.
They can spend up to $2,000 to fix a guest's problem on the spot without having to go ask a single manager for permission.
Think about the operational speed advantage that gives them.
Huge.
But more importantly, think about the signal it sends to the employee. It bypasses the entire approval bureaucracy and signals profound belief in that employee's judgment.
Right. It says, I trust you to do the right thing.
And we have to recognize that asking an employee to exercise that kind of judgment requires a foundation of psychological security.
What do you mean?
You cannot ask people to take risks, innovate, and make bold decisions if they are terrified of losing their livelihoods. Extrinsic factors still matter.
For sure.
The research points to Southwest Airlines during the 2008 financial crisis. While their competitors were executing massive layoffs to protect their bottom lines, Southwest maintained a strict no-layoff commitment.
Because if you want me to act like an owner and take risks for the company, you can't treat me as a disposable line item the second the market dips.
Exactly. By providing that foundational security, they gave their employees the psychological safety needed to focus on maintaining incredible service quality.
Instead of just hunkering down, updating their resumes, and self-protecting.
Trust has to be a reciprocal relationship.
Okay, so let's say a company manages to do this. They strip away the crushing bureaucracy. They empower the team with transparency, structural trust, and psychological safety.
It's a big if, but let's say they do.
Right. How do you sustain this high-performance engine over a decade? Because moving away from a command and control model seems like it requires a massive shift in how we view leadership itself.
It absolutely does. It requires moving to a concept called distributed leadership.
Distributed leadership.
Yes. The traditional model says leadership is a title. It's the person sitting in the corner office who delegates tasks.
Right, the boss.
But the distributed model says leadership is a collective capability that shifts based on the problem.
Oh, interesting.
The manufacturing company W.L. Gore, the people who make Gore-Tex, they are the prime example here.
Okay.
They use what they call a lattice structure. There is no traditional hierarchy.
Wait, none at all?
None. Employees choose which projects they want to join, and they choose which leaders they want to follow, based entirely on that person's expertise and value delivery, not an appointed job title.
That is wild.
Leaders emerge organically because people actually want to follow them.
It's like switching from a rigid GPS that dictates your every single left and right turn, recalculating aggressively the second you deviate from the path, to giving your team a compass, a destination, and trusting them to navigate the terrain themselves.
I love that analogy. It perfectly captures the mechanism.
They might find a more efficient shortcut that the GPS didn't even know existed.
Yeah. Exactly. And in that analogy, the compass is the organization's purpose.
Why?
To sustain high performance without surveillance, you have to intimately connect the individual's daily work to a meaningful impact.
Do you have an example?
The Cleveland Clinic is a phenomenal example of this. Their stated purpose is patients first. But they don't just print that on a break room poster.
Okay, everyone has a poster.
They translate that purpose into daily action for every single role. Even the environmental services staff, the people mopping the floors, aren't managed by an output control like clean this room in 7 minutes.
Okay, so how are they managed?
They are specifically trained on how their precise cleaning routines directly eradicate specific pathogens, preventing infections and literally saving patients' lives.
Wow. That intrinsic connection beats any output KPI you could ever design.
100%.
If I know my work is saving a life, I don't need a software program tracking my mouse movement to ensure I do a thorough job. But if the purpose is the compass, How do you make sure the compass stays accurate over time? How does a fully autonomous team course correct when things go wrong?
Through embedded learning systems. Because in a distributed high-trust model, everyone is making decisions all the time,
Right.
which means everyone needs to be constantly updating their knowledge. The U.S. Army does this brilliantly with their after-action reviews.
Oh, the AARs.
Yes. The moment a mission ends, they sit down and ruthlessly dissect what worked, what failed, and what they need to change for next time, regardless of rank.
So a private can critique a general.
If it's about the mission outcomes, yes. The investment firm Bridgewater Associates practices a similar radical transparency with their postmortems.
How does that work?
The mechanism here is a blameless autopsy. When a massive error happens, they don't go hunting for a scapegoat to fire.
Which is what usually happens.
Right. Instead, they dig into the root cause and extract the lesson to update their decision-making principles. You have to be able to fail intelligently in order to learn.
So what does this all mean when we pull it all together?
Well, the takeaway is
The evidence in Dr. Westover's research is completely unambiguous. Surveillance, keystroke tracking, and micromanagement might create a comforting illusion of productivity.
it definitely makes managers feel better.
It might make a manager feel secure because they can see a status indicator glowing green, but it is systematically gutting a company's innovation, its retention, and the actual well-being of its people.
It's a false sense of security.
The companies that are winning today, whether it's Netflix sharing raw context, Hair building internal markets, Morningstar using horizontal contracts, or Southwest guaranteeing security, they're the ones that treat their employees like capable adults.
Exactly.
They invest in building their human capabilities
Yeah.
rather than buying software to monitor them.
This raises an important question, and it's fundamentally a strategic choice for any organization. Do we view employees as costs that need to be minimized and risks that must be controlled?
Or do we view them as capable human beings worthy of respect?
Trust isn't about being naive. It's not about just closing your eyes and hoping everyone does their best. As we've seen, real trust is a highly sophisticated, rigorously designed organizational capability.
Exactly. And I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder as you look at your own daily work environment. Dr. Westover's research briefly touches on the rise of artificial intelligence, and it paints a fascinating picture when you connect it to this surveillance paradox.
Oh, AI changes everything here.
Think about the trajectory we are on right now. As AI continues to evolve, it is going to seamlessly take over all the repetitive, routine, easily measurable cognitive tasks.
That is a guarantee.
So what is actually left for humans to do? The only skills left holding premium value will be the uniquely human ones: nuanced judgment, deep empathy, and highly creative problem solving.
The things you can't measure with keystrokes.
Exactly. If your organization is still using surveillance tools built for assembly line metrics to try and manage human creativity in an AI-driven world, are they really measuring productivity? Or are they just measuring the speed at which they are becoming obsolete?
That's a powerful way to look at it.
If we go back to that assembly line, if you are being managed strictly like a cog, you are fundamentally replaceable by an algorithm. But if you are being trusted to navigate the unknown, to use that compass, that is where the future of work actually is.
I couldn't agree more.
Take a look around your workplace tomorrow. Ask yourself, are you being watched or are you being believed? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.